What's up, Rockstars? Today we're going to have a very interesting video. I need to talk about what's going on in the industry right now when it comes to gift giving, when it comes to getting paid, just when it comes to the financial pressures on this industry when it comes to reviews, being critical of the industry, all that kind of stuff. There's some drama going on right now. We'll get into that, but this is going to be a general talk about being a reviewer, being critical, and being independent. Maybe. Now, before you skip, I know often you guys do, of course, because I start every single video out thanking my patrons and YouTube members. I'm not going to do that this time. Not because I'm not thankful, but because I want to thank everybody for watching right now. You right now watching have helped me because either I got some ad revenue from you, in which case, thank you for the pennies. I do appreciate it. YouTube premium stuff, that actually pays quite well, especially if you watch the whole video. There is, of course, those, all of you that are just doing the Patreon thing or even just watching the video. That increases the view. Maybe you like it. Maybe you'll tell a friend about it. Maybe you'll become a future patron. Maybe thanks to subscriptions and views and those public numbers, companies come and actually say, hey, we want to have you unbox our game, tell us about it, and kind of help improve things there, or whatever it might be. I benefit from you guys, and at the end of the day, my focus is on you. It's not actually about making money, or I would have really pushed to make more, apparently, or anything else. So we'll get into why people do what they do, why channels exist, and a lot more towards the end of the video. But I just wanted to give you a quick thank you. You watching right now, thank you so very much. With that out of the way, we're also going to quickly do this is not a sponsored video specifically where I have a plug. They've not asked me to do this, but they are a sponsor for this whole channel, and that's Into the AM. They have a big Labor Day sale. I'm wearing one of their shirts now. You can see it right here. Go ahead and check that out. It's always linked down below. One of the nice things about them is that I don't review shirts. So I peddle them to you guys because they're fantastic. Trust me, you'll love it. But that's kind of a big point, right? Is that, and this is going to be a weird video because I have some notes because I want to make sure I hit some certain points, but I don't script these things. This is just a conversation that I'm having with you guys about this. And I want to have a conversation, which means feel free to respond back so I can then read and respond to you. This is the first bout in a multifaceted conversation we can have about this because it's very important. But I feel importance is having sponsors like that or GameWare Create. They make fantastic miniatures. If you see a 3D printed STL, like, oh man, I wish that was a physical thing, you can go to them. You can even hand them the STL if you want. They will print it. They will make it fantastic for you, ship it beautifully, and it'll come and it'll look better than anything you got in a board game, I promise. So, I have these sponsors that are outside of what I review. Now, what I review, right, and this is kind of, my channel has shifted as things have gone, right? And I've very much become a industry critic, I guess, if you were to label it, more so than even a reviewer. But I do long form reviews after lots of play, and they're always late, and whatever. I hope you guys appreciate it. Because a lot of work goes into those. But I do review those, right? And I am critiquing the industry, which means the companies in them. So to work with those, and we'll talk about how I've done that, to work with those and then still be able to do that takes some certain level of things. So let's discuss that. First of all, not everybody can be bought, at least not easily. Everybody has a price, right? I mean, if you say, hey, $300 billion, you'll be the richest person in the world briefly, until Elon Musk passes you again, or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, either way, you'll have a ton of money, right? All you got to do is lie to 3,000 people that are going to watch this video. Guys, I'd probably take them billion. No offense, but my kids' future would be set totally different, right? I mean, I could treat my wife to everything she could ever want. It'd be fantastic, right? So my point is that even though you trust me, right? You trust me, at least hopefully, and we'll get into trust and kind of how that works. But I would betray your trust. There is a price, right? There is something out there that would do it, right? So, don't take it as in nobody can be bought, but there are different mindsets. There are different people, and different people are affected differently. There are people, and I've seen it done before, right? That would sell their mother. Well, okay, I guess I haven't seen it literally. I've never seen anybody sell their mother, but would sell their mother out for $5 of free product. That would do leaps and bounds for a little bit of free swag or something like that. Like their threshold to be bought or swindled or moved or whatever is lower than others. And maybe it's average. Maybe there are some that are just way above. But there are people that are way above too. As an example, I watch Linus Tech Tips quite often, and Linus is the kind of guy that you can't really buy, at least not very easily. He tends to not care so much about that, and his passion tends to be about the technology and less about what company did what. Now, there's a few reasons for that. One is a separation. So a lot of times you'll see whether it's a website review site or whether it's even like a news site that has advertisings and stuff like that, or magazines and stuff like that, TVs, a few different bigger companies will essentially have like an editorial team, and then a writer's team or a reviewer's team or whatever, and then would have a marketing team, right? And so there's like 2 degrees of separation. You have the writers, the people making the review. You have the editors to make sure they're doing their job. And then you have the marketing team wholly separate doing that. It's why you can get like a car magazine and see a terrible review for the latest Ford, and then there's a Ford advertisement in that magazine. That separation comes from that, right? Where the reviewer is not barely even aware, if at all, that there's going to be an advertising there. Now, that doesn't always hold up, right? And we've seen that breakdown before, obviously. So money breaks all walls. But that's the idea, right? Is there's a separation between that. And Linus is like that too. Linus isn't the one like working out the deal in the email. So, oh yeah, NVIDIA, please sponsor this video, right? He's not the one doing that. Somebody else is. He's just the host on there saying this or that about NVIDIA. And he might then go and say this and that about NVIDIA, and it might be terrible, even though they sponsored a video right before then. So that separation can help. That's not typically the case here when it comes to YouTube, right? Often when you're seeing me or somebody else, you're just seeing the person, like they're not just the face of it, they are it, right? And so like if into the AM, I work directly with them. I don't have somebody else in marketing go talk to them and figure it out. I'm not even aware. I was just told, plug this. They feel great. I can tell you about that. I have no idea how much I got paid or how often it is or anything like that. That's not the case. I know exactly what I'm getting when I tell you that. So that's something to keep in mind, of course, right? So there's that. But even if so, there are people that just are resistant to it. So some people are really, really easily bought, and some people just don't care. A lot of that is about the focus, and I will end the video on that. I'm going to talk about focusing at the very end, and there are probably timestamps if I can manage to categorize these well. But I wanted to kind of get through that to then talk about reviewing expensive items. So if you're reviewing a video game, for instance, it costs what? Maybe $60, $70? Now, that may be a lot to a lot of people, and it might be very little to a lot of people. Everybody's different financially. I'm not going to even try to really get into that. But either way, it is typically not seen as a prohibitively expensive hobby. If you do the collector's editions and the ultimate editions, all this, it certainly can be. Certainly can be. But especially if you review video games, often you have, there are so many people interested in that industry, and they all tend to go to YouTube. So it's a very easy area to actually like get enough views to afford the game you reviewed typically, right? And so it kind of pays for itself more or less. And it's kind of a lower threshold. Or if you were to review other things that might be small. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm not trying to give a huge amount of examples, but you can understand there's a difference between reviewing the latest Halo and reviewing a Lamborghini, right? So let's say, how do you review exotic cars? Do you have to be some multimillionaire that can afford to buy them himself? Well, no, that's not how that works. If you have to review expensive, maybe often expensive tech, it's the same way. Like, oh, I review cameras. This camera is $2,800. Let me tell you about it. They didn't spend $2,800 to go buy it themselves. So to remain honest, that's impractical. They're not going to get that money back when it comes to views, unless you jury-rig everything and you're just destroying phones. But besides him, Besides Zach, that's kind of the idea, right? When you review a more expensive hobby, more expensive items, right? Games that cost $180, or maybe you have to do the expansions too, and so it's now $300 as well. It gets very expensive, and as we all know, we are in a very expensive hobby that's going up, not down in expense, especially when it comes to shipping and stuff like that. So if you were to only review little dinky card games, you could probably do that, and I don't mean dinky in a negative main. I just mean small, right? Like just these little tiny little things, like a deck of cards that does something. Then maybe you could get your money back, though it depends on how. If it's Magic the Gathering, I guess you can't, but then you're spending way too much anyway. I digress. My point is that in any industry, when the review is of a product that's more expensive, it tends to be impractical for the reviewer to purchase them all without getting free product, right? Now, that doesn't always mean they get to keep it, right? It's like the reviewer doesn't get to keep the Lamborghini. Right? That goes back. He gets a weekend with it or whatever. Or maybe even a phone or something like that. But that tends to be the case throughout all industries, and it's just a practical standpoint. So getting free product is a means to an end, not necessarily benefit. Now, it can be, okay? So I'm not going to try and pretend that's not, but I'm trying to separate that from that, because one of the drama things we're going to talk about at the end is giving things other than games. In other words, something that isn't a means to an end, that doesn't have that purpose or that excuse to be given, I guess is the better word to that. At least you can point and say, that's why it was given. It was given because of this, right? At least you can point that, oh, they just want me to unbox it. That's why they sent it. I can always say that. There comes a thing where if you give something else, suddenly there's no excuse you can really point, if that makes sense. I talked about shirts. I talked about 3D printing services because there needs to typically be a separation between what you review and what you are being sponsored by. There tends to be a desire, mostly I think from YouTubers, me and my peers, because we're passionate about games. I don't think any of us hate games, right? We love games. We love the board games that we play and we love a lot of things about it, right? And so with that love and passion, there's that desire internally to want to share, right? To be like, oh man, I could tell you about how great this is. Like it's a natural word of mouth, but then with a platform, right? Then with a soapbox to stand on. Because if you play a cool game, you're going to go tell your buddies about it, right? Oh, guys, Dune Imperium was fantastic. You guys need to get Dune Imperium. So come to my house, we'll play it. I want to tell you about it. You should have it too so that you can play it with your family, because I know your daughter would love this. Or like you naturally do that, So now if you have a platform where you can share that to a whole bunch of people, like, guys, Dune Imperium is great. It's super fun. Like you want, that desire is always there. The problem is that sometimes means if you're getting money from devs or there's some kind of big conflict of interest, there's a desire to still do that, right? To essentially double dip, as I call, right? So you took the big bite out of the chip of sour cream and onion or whatever with some great dip on it, with working with the company or whatever. And then you want to take another dip, right? You've already bitten off of it and you go back for the second dip, and it's gross and a little kind of icky, but it'll taste good to you. That's my metaphor there. You're welcome, I guess. My point is that desire is always there. And I don't think it comes from a very innocent portion, right? It's not a malicious thing. You're not like, I could swindle people into liking Dune Imperium. And it's like, no, it's like you honestly like Dune Imperium, you want to share it. So that's what's kind of hard. And I've heard of other creators actually say, because they offer services, and they're like, hey, yeah, we can offer that, but you probably don't want us to, because we actually want to review your game and we won't do both. There are people out there doing that. They don't advertise it. A lot of times they're not the big channels. My examples that I have in my head, they're not the big channels anyway, that I know that's happened before. But I really respect that. And I think that's very strong-willed of them, if that makes sense. And that kind of goes to the would you sell your mother out for $5 kind of thing, like when it comes to how strong of a will you have to separate those two things. Okay, so there's that as well. I think it's important to separate what you review with what you get paid for. Okay, so now with that, I'm going to go ahead, and I don't actually have this noted here, but I want to quickly say, like, as you guys know, I worked with Nemesis Games on the Uprising campaign, and they did pay me for that consulting service. I spent many times with them and met them in all hours of the night. They can attest to that. They'd ping me at 1 a.m. and Lord knows I'm awake then. So yeah, let's meet. Let's hash out some stuff. So hopefully I helped with them. I believe they felt great about that. But there is no Uprising review now, is there? There you go. Same thing with Primal. After, like, again, this was at the same time. So, like, well after I reviewed their prototype, they came and were like, hey, we know you are very passionate about miniatures and about getting the best detail and all that kind of quality and stuff like that. Could you consult with us, work with us on that? And I've been doing that. We're almost done with that, by the way. But again, I've already done a prototype review. I probably will not be doing a final review. I want to separate what I review with what I'm getting paid for. Now, that kind of conflict of interest, I mean, I still don't know. Maybe those will be the last two I do. I have to kind of make a judgment call on that, of course. But it'll always be a conversation, always be, of course, explained. Now, that is a big deal because that actually does lead to my next thing. You either trust me or you don't. In other words, the years I've done doing this, either I have built enough trust with you to know that, oh yeah, he won't be bought with this, or he'll still say this, or this won't be an issue or whatever, and he'll be sure to tell me if there is any kind of even perceived conflict of interest or something like that, versus something like, you know, no, I'm a little cagey, I don't trust you, or whatever, right? So you kind of either have to do that or not. Now, the reason I say that is because there are other forms of payment besides financially that you can do. For instance, a lot of people love to stroke their ego, right? Especially once you become a YouTube star. Like, oh man, tens of thousands of people listen to every word I say. You guys now have watched this video, if you haven't skipped around, for a long time and you're still listening to me. Oh, that feels so good. Oh, I must. So some people have a bigger ego than others. Some people are quite self-deprecating, and but you get what I'm saying, right? And so just including them in the game, adding a promo card. Like I had a boss once that loved to see his name next to things, like on a projector. Like if they're have a slide deck and they have, like, he just liked to see his name there. Oh yeah, I got that. You know, like just, oh man, you know, I checked that off the ego list. I've helped do this and I've done that and I've, you know, so that definitely can exist in people, and it can lead to just as much or maybe worse. Maybe you can't buy them out with money, but you can buy them out with a little bit of an ego stroke, right? Maybe, you know, it's like, oh man, yeah, but we'll include a badge on here of you, or do a special thanks, or host you this, or do that, or you'll be in a card here, you get to help design this, or we'll make this art of you, or, you know, there's all those other kind of things. Now I'm in Oathsworn. You guys can have me dead in Oathsworn if you so choose, in which case I think that's hilarious. I'm going to be in another game. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if they want me to announce it yet. So maybe well, whatever. I don't care. So the Chronicles of Drunagar Apocalypse. You might see a face that looks kind of familiar in there as well when it comes to the art. So like that kind of stuff happens, and then you have to trust me and judge my ego and whether or not that means that now I'm still going to say that. So maybe they didn't pay me, but they also included me in the game. So am I conflicted? When I spoke about Oathsworn and then they wanted to add me in a card, does that mean that now I can't talk about Oathsworn anymore? Can I not talk about Shadowborn games anymore? Just stuff to keep in mind. And what it means is at the end of the day, if you dig down deep enough, you will always find a relation, you know, with stuff. Even if they gave me an early copy, that means technically I had a benefit because I had an early view copy, which means more views for me. And I was one of the first people to review this. And so therefore, more views, more money. Indirectly, I got that. And so like, there's always a way you can draw a dotted line to benefit from a review. Because anytime you're doing that, you're benefiting a company if it's positive. And so any connection then can kind of come back to you. It goes both ways, if that makes sense. They get more successful, you get more successful in turn. The more people that back that, the more people see my review, vice versa. Okay, so there's always going to be those, and you, the viewer, have to be the judge on whether or not you trust the person you're watching or not when it comes to their opinion. Now, this is assuming, of course, that they're wanting to do that double dip, and they're wanting to do both reviews and get paid for, you know, the reviewer paid for other things or other benefits or whatever it might be, right? That's up to you guys. And the most I can do is just try and give you all the information you need to make that judgment call yourself, and then let my actions speak louder than any words that might be said on either side of the fence there. Okay, so with that, let's talk about the drama. All right, let's talk about what's been happening lately. So I'm going to throw a picture up now, right here. Right here's the picture. With that, let me explain. Chip Theory Games has a game coming out that they are trying to create buzz for and stuff like that, right? And that they're working with certain people to send early copies for reviews so that there are early reviews in for the game and all that kind of stuff. So there's already like a business like transaction available there, right? One that is probably on their taxes, if nothing else, when it comes to making the prototype and sending it out and all that, right? So there's already work there. And then of course there's paid services, whether it's a person showing you, maybe how to play the game or an overview of the game or whatever. There's a lot of paid third-party YouTube services you can do as well to get the word out on your game. That's pretty bog standard though, right? Sending the game out, paying somebody to do a let's play video perhaps or something like that. And then, doing that sort of stuff. Sponsor spots, maybe even whatever other people do. I don't know. I don't do those, but maybe other people do. So that's already there. What they didn't send is the game though. What they sent was a sword with customized engraving of the company's logo to these people. Now, that goes back to kind of what I was saying, where there's a business need to send the game. You can't review it without an access to it, especially before it's produced, right? All these crowdfunding games, stuff like that. Like, it's not available. I can't go buy the game. I have to be sent it. That's the only way to get a review out. So maybe it's worth it for the review, right? That kind of, okay, so there's a little bit of connection here, but it's worth it because the outcome is you guys get to know early if I think it's good or not, right? So that's kind of the idea there. Sending a sword is not that at all, right? Sending a sword is an actual gift. Now, I've worked with corporations like Fortune 50 companies that have huge regulations, either by law or just by, trying to stay honest when it comes to gift giving and stuff like that, especially for like their salespeople and stuff like that. When it comes to, here's a dollar amount you can accept, or maybe you can't accept them at all, and you have to categorize them, and there's all this different stuff that you kind of need to do. There are actual legal issues in many states and countries when it comes to gift giving a business to another party kind of thing, if that makes sense. So obviously it's already kind of iffy, but then, the sword does nothing except either stroke the ego, right? Or get the word out, or what. Like the whole idea is to kind of like make some pizzazz and stuff like that, right? Their claim is that it's often a, like thankless job and, underpaying job, but then they send it to stuff like, Dice Tower, which obviously does well for itself and is doing okay, and definitely, I would hope, not underpaying their people. So like the fact that it's like in response to that is kind of awkward, because obviously they didn't, much, point to that, right? Or like Alex got one, I know, and, he just recently became like CFO or CMO of GameFound, and then he's making around, like 70K-ish a year on his like YouTube endeavors and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, so when you say that, what do you mean, right? Now, of course, maybe that's nothing to them. They're like, oh my gosh, they must be so poor, who knows what, right? My point is that they didn't, that's an excuse, right? They didn't send it to the people that they thought, and again, like a sincere, like, thank you card, or, like there's a lot you could do besides a sword that's emblazoned with your logo, right? That's an ego stroke there. That's a, that's definitely there to influence, if that makes sense. It's purposeful. It's probably smart marketing. And you see that in other industries too. You had people getting, giant statues or helmets of Halo and stuff like that, and for the video game industry, and they would send it to YouTubers and stuff like that. And, it's a very easy way to kind of gain influence over somebody if it works for that person. And it depends on the person and how much that affects them, if that makes sense, which I've already talked about. So it brings up a point, I think, when it comes to what the focus is, right? So I kind of said I'd end on this, and so I'm ending on this. When you go to make a video on YouTube, right, you can have different purposes or different focuses. And that is, I think, in my mind, the key to being bought out or not bought out, right? So your focus could be money, right? I want to start a YouTube channel because I want that banging YouTube money. I want the money. And so you're going to go to every sponsor that's willing to pay for you, and you're going to push for every little bit of, Patreon and merch and this and that. And if you can double and triple dip on a video, and I got paid for the sponsor, I got paid for the review, I got paid for the product that I got for free, and I get to do a giveaway, so I get more subscribers and blah, like you're going to pound as much money into that as you can, because that's your focus, which makes sense. And if that wants to be your business thing, you can totally do that, of course. Your focus could be on just stroking your ego. Like I said, guys, I just want, I'm addicted to the likes and the views. When I see 10,000 people, I grew up in a town of 5,000 people. So if there are more than 5,000 views on this video, it's as if everybody in that town tuned in to hear what I had to say. Oh, my ego is blown away. I gotta get more. I gotta get more. I want all the likes and all that. And I want to review everything that's popular, and I want to chase that algorithm, and I want to do this and do that. That can be your focus too. So you could have that. Maybe it's just games. I just want the free product. I can't afford to do it. But you know what? If I start reviewing them, even if they're the little dinky ones, suddenly they'll start giving me new ones, and I can get this and I can get that. And I love getting free stuff, and it makes me feel so cool and like important. And I think that's great that the company trusts me with that, and I get all this new stuff. That can be your focus too. Your focus could be on political things. I am very passionate about this stance, and I want to kind of try and help guide the industry to this or to that. And maybe that's your focus. There are channels that focus on every single thing I listed. That's definitely a thing. Or there's mine, right? Which is consumers, you guys, us. I want to focus on the bettering things for consumers. I want consumers to be getting better deals and stronger deals, more safe deals, really cool games that are very easy for us. I got sick and tired of things that were stored for shipping, not for storing the game on my shelf. I got sick and tired of a rule book that just notified everything but wasn't being able to learn, or that was impractical to use or look up, or separated in 3 books, or all this other kind of stupid stuff that I kept seeing all the time that affects us. And I was like, well, I want to pound on that as much as I can to make things better for us. And so it just depends on what your focus is, what your mindset is, where you're at, and that affects how easily you can be bought by a variety of different means. So it really just depends on what you're in it for. What are you in here for on YouTube, within the industry, whether you do even just Kickstarter stuff and you're writing updates on Board Game Geek for people or anything like that. Are you doing it for recognition? Are you doing it for money? Are you doing it to push an agenda? Are you doing it to, help people? And if so, there are some that just want to help the board game people. That just like, hey, I know especially the indie guys, they pump their souls into this stuff and they have to claw their way at every little dollar. If I can make a video for them, I'm so glad I was able to make a video for company A or company B or company C. They can be your target audience. The consumers can be your target audience. Your sponsors can be your target audience. The pushing your political agenda can be your target purpose. I mean, there's a ton of different reasons you could be doing this. You guys as the viewers just need to decide what the person is up to, what they're trying to do, where they're at. And then also, I would say, just like with a Kickstarter company or a GameFound company or whatever, a crowdfunding company, be considerate and know that people aren't perfect. We're always growing. We're always trying to be the best version that we can, and do our best work here, regardless of what the end goal is. You got to do quality stuff to get there, right? And I think that's everybody's goal, is at least to do that quality stuff. So that's kind of, my final thoughts on it. As somebody who has dabbled in stuff that could, you could definitely draw a connection there, or as somebody who has, received lots of free stuff. I totally have. I mean, I did not pay for all of this. I paid for a lot of it, but I didn't pay for all of it. So, you just kind of have to judge it. It's hard, for sure. It's also something, I guess, to keep in mind that just because something isn't for you doesn't mean it's not for somebody else. There are people that are only watching any kind of review on any channel or on any platform just because they want to be told they made a great decision when it comes to buying a game. I just spent $300. Please tell me why that was a great idea. If that's what they want, there's somebody out there to supply them for that, and that's their audience. That's fine. That's them. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's not me. Maybe you want to actually be talked out of something. Maybe you want to know more about these details, or, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different avenues you can go, a lot of different people you can watch and kind of go to, or, even the comment sections on some of these Kickstarter campaigns or GameFound campaigns, or even on BGG can actually be quite useful for stuff like this. So, anyway, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Let me know your thoughts on this. I guess if I was to put a stamp on everything, right? If I was to say this without all the context and all the fluff or whatever, sitting out swords, I think is a terrible idea. I think it's super cool, but I think it it appropriately reflects onto the company, not just the person receiving it, who may have not even asked for it. If that, I hope that makes sense. Like if they had decided, first of all, they would have to have my address. But if they decided to send me a sword, it's not like I necessarily asked for it or even expected it or anything like that. So I'm like, well, what the heck do I do with this sword? I'd put it in my fundraiser. Speaking of which, speaking of the shirts and outside board game money. I will be doing another fundraiser this year. It'll be a lot more streamlined for you guys, which should be good. But thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for participating in any way you can, whether even if it's just a like on the video or a comment saying great job or anything like that. Like, that's why I do it. Not for the ego boost, but for the knowledge that I helped somebody, knowledge that I helped one of you guys either make a better decision or do something better, or, in any way improve your board game experience, avoiding a bad deal, getting a light on a great deal that you ended up loving. All that kind of stuff is that's what I live for. I love it. The satisfaction that brings is immense. So thank you so much. And your generosity financially, when it does come to that, whether it's a fundraiser or Patreon or anything like that, blows me away. I am dumbfounded at how generous of a group of people you are. And I'm so incredibly thankful to count myself among you. Really, truly, I mean it. So with that lovey-dovey stuff out of the way, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, if you have any thoughts on this, feel free to let me know. Reach out. We'll have a conversation about it. Definitely something I've put a lot of thought into myself, even before this whole sword giving thing even came up. So anyway, with that, take care. Bye, guys.